Hossein, great to see you on here. We had a great chat the other week, so I'm delighted that you've managed to come along and talk to us on this Piscari Insights series. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, Mike.
Pleasure. So for people that's the audience, just explain kind of who you are and what you do briefly.
So my name is Hossein Houssaini. I come from the advertising industry, technology industry mainly. Started my career with brands, working for L'Oreal, IBM. Before, after my second degree, I started working for a company called DoubleClick, which soon got acquired by a company called Google, where I learned my tech expertise in the world of ad serving technologies, rich media, and programmatic advertising. And from there, I went to work for the network agencies to launch programmatic in Europe, in Germany at that time, and DACH at that time, for IPG media brands. And then I went from there to the UK to be the global head of programmatic solutions for Havas Group, where I pushed the message.
Big role.
It was a big role. It was a very interesting role, especially going from a local market to a global market. But I never planned that. So in my interview process was for a local role, and then all of a sudden I had global people in the interview process, and where I described, I initiated the first global music data alliance between Havas Group and Universal Music as a concept, which was I think part of my pitch to get in, which was great, and being able to be part of that relationship and show people in the company that what you do is complex but simple at the same time. And my job really depends on your philosophy, what you have, but I learned really quickly that especially in the data-driven advertising world, there's no 100% path, right? There's, if you think from an ad server, from a server perspective, there's always a request and response process. That is in the data-driven world as well, but it really depends what experience you have, what approach you have, what technology you use, what people work on it. So, we intend in our business to think very two-dimensional and try to solve problems two-dimensional. And, once you have a wall in front of you, how do I break through it? In programmatic, I always say it's three-dimensional or four. You always have different angles to solve a certain challenge or deliver a campaign. It really depends on many factors.
Interesting. So let's get into the questions that we kind of discussed as well, because I think this is going to be a fascinating. I'm going to learn a lot from this session. Hopefully the audience will too. So Zenith recently says Zenith reported the following statistic. So in 2020, 69% of all digital media will trade programmatically, amounting to US dollars, $122 billion. I was like, did I get that right? $122 billion of digital media spend. So kind of, from your enormous experience, can you talk about where kind of programmatic advertising's come from in the last kind of 10 years and kind of where's it going in the next 3 years, do you think?
So just to correct you a little bit, digital ad spending is much higher. It's about, over 400 billion. Programmatic advertising is around 100 and 120.
Right.
Although last year we had a little break, it still grew, but not as fast as it was predicted, of course, in 2019 and before. But
programmatic is $120 billion worth of spend.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So just the US, of course, has a huge portion of that. But
yeah, of course.
The overall ad industry is quite big.
Can you summarize in like a couple of sentences what what's the essence of programmatic?
So the core philosophy of programmatic, if we look at the old ways how we used to buy digital advertising, you had an advertiser or an agency, and then you had your publisher. You would create your campaign, and then you would plan and communicate with the publisher to deliver a certain amount of impressions on certain premium websites, right, of a publisher, which at some point, how do you know that you get the return back if just if you show an ad on a certain environment that these people are interested in the product? So with programmatic, which wasn't called programmatic at that time, we used this word occasionally but the start was real-time bidding, RTB, where we the philosophy around that was why don't we use a bidding process based on data to evaluate that audience at the right moment, at the right place, and deliver the right ad for that audience based on data and his interests and his behavior.
So this is a true dynamic pricing model.
Exactly, right? Which was first based on second price auction, and then I went to first price auction. So many things happened. I would take more than 30 minutes to talk about that.
You take the evening, exactly.
and I tell you, this was a breakthrough in advertising, which was not seen as a breakthrough at that time, because people are scared of innovation, right? So it's new, was data driven. The person who was planning was, the media planner was at some point scared. We didn't really understand what was really going on. So nobody had a blueprint how we turn into this a business. The agencies did, we built trading desks where we would apply that technology. But there was at the beginning not enough inventory or not qualitative inventory, not enough data. And so what we've done, where we claim using machine learning algorithms to reach the right audience, we press this into the traditional business, working with campaigns where you have a start and end date, where you think logically, okay, programmatic and machine learning means I need to constantly learn, so I need to be constant activated. Where we, after 10 years, we go in this direction now. Some companies did, but it took us a huge while to get in this direction. And as I said to you, it wasn't easy, it was new, but it was clear that we need to go in this direction. Because if you look at advertising overall, if you look at the first ad we had on a newspaper over 200 years ago, we always layered channels on top of them with new measurements, which brings a complexity. We always created new teams, which made channel-based marketing very inefficient at some point. You would build a strategy around that. You would have different teams deliver on that. Now with programmatic, the consolidation idea would come into play. It's like, okay, I can use one tech piece that communicates with many other tech pieces based on my KPIs across various of channels, which can be, display, video, mobile, digital out of home, now in-game advertising, audio, CTV, connected TV, and so on and so on. So I can reflect that into one platform in one campaign with multiple line items and optimize against that to actually tell a story. That's the vision, and we still work towards that. Now we in the era of connected TV, which we focus on. But we had our challenges. We were seeing this model was seen as a black box. Was intransparent at some point, was criticized, and then of course we had GDPR coming, where everybody swear it's not gonna come, but it came. A law that was planned for over a decade, right, by the European Union, where it said, we have to come at some place, and it came. A lot of people underestimating how data was handled before. And you would go on a website, and you wouldn't be aware how many companies would track you surfing on website assets, and how this data would be distributed without you knowing that. Now with GDPR, you have the you have to flag that out. So when you go on a website and it says, we're going to use data for marketing purposes, but you still have plenty of trackers, setting a third-party cookie on your browser to retarget you and remessage you. Now, people could argue like if the cookie is valuable or not. It's like I say, it's questionable, although it's quite important for cross-device targeting or cross-channel attribution. And now with Google's, with the industry diminishing while saying goodbye to the cookie, we have I would say we don't have, it's not a promise, a challenge, but it gives us the opportunity to rethink how we do advertising. And I think we lost that passion.
Talk about Google's actions. So where they kind of like the demise of the cookie. What drove that, and what does it mean for people? Because some of my audience may not understand exactly what's happened and what it will mean.
So let me explain what a first-party cookie is and a third-party cookie, right? So the first-party cookie is, I have my website, you come on my website and I set my domain cookie there, and I can see what you do on my website. You come back, you register, you log back in, you use that cookie so that you don't have to log back in, CRM data and everything around that. A third-party cookie is, you go on a website and you might see an ad which comes from a different server, and that ad leaves a third-party cookie on your browser to retarget you, remessage you across the web. Based on the legislations and privacy issues all the big tech companies had in the past couple of years, and the forward thinking of the future of the business, and browsers starting to say, okay, the third-party cookie is a privacy issue, how data is handled. Safari and Firefox were in the beginning developing ETP and ITP, blocking third-party cookies, just blocking it, right? And Google saying, we're going to kill it. That's it. And bringing an alternative solution. Now, when Google announced they're going to kill it, the industry, of course, reacted and said, we're going to build an alternative solution for that, which is called identity. So, there are ways beyond cookies where you can build an ID around the user. Mm-hmm. But Google now announced a solution called FLoC, which is called Federated Learning of Cohorts. Translated, it would be smart groups, right? So you don't. So everything that happens is stored on your browser and doesn't leave your browser. And based on your interests, how you browse, you get set into cohorts. And based on that, advertisers can target you. Now, this will have an impact on attribution modeling because so far you need a cookie to do that. And in those walled garden solutions like Google with FLoC, other browsers don't like FLoC and gonna block that. Like Brave, for example, Brave browser said they're not gonna allow that. You will be able to definitely, attribute to some extent, based on measurements Google dictates, I would say, right? Because you have to trust. You have to trust what they give you. On the other hand, the industry is, as I said, is working on other solutions as well, which is called Universal ID. It's an identity solution to be still relevant. Because the one thing you don't want is, a monopolism because somebody just owns a solution to block everybody else. Now,
because otherwise, aren't we just putting all the power back in Google's hands? Isn't this a play by Google just to get more control?
it's every walled garden, right? Every walled garden will benefit somehow from that, because somehow, the industry will move with what is bringing them results, or you can't just
Yeah.
stop advertising. But I will allow, I guess, appoint the other solutions, as long as they meet all privacy terms based on regulations, federal regulations, which at some point, right, means that we need to think about alternatives. So everybody in the industry who is not working in this industry brands, oh my God, the world is going down. It's like, no, it's not. What we have not done right when programmatic came into place, and even years before that, when it was clear that data is relevant to target and to address your users, but content creativity is relevant as well. So first-party data is quite important now, important than anything else. And now we need advertisers and brands, or anybody who creates content, to pick up and think about how to create good content, to have users engage with that content, to create more first-party data. On the one hand, on their assets. Now, on the other side, of course, publishers sit on a vast amount of first-party data, which they create through the daily visitors, and there definitely is a legal way how to enrich both parties to target better, right?
And by publishers, you mean, so someone like Campaign or The Drum, where they're a publishing platform.
BBC.com.
You go to The Drum.
Exactly. And of course, there are other solutions or other data points that get more relevant, like location. How can I talk about location? How can I target based on contextual? So you go on a website, and there's the website gets scraped to it software, and based on keywords, it would show you the right ad. If there's sun and travel, and if that aligns with my targeting criteria, that would show you a travel ad, maybe. So that's
I had a very interesting discussion today about this point, about about controlling diversity of thinking. There's a danger that if the big social platforms and search platforms get so sophisticated that they only feed content to us that they believe we want to see, then our ability as human beings to stretch our thinking and become more diverse and more inclusive will be diminished. What do you think?
Well,
we didn't prepare this, but it's an interesting question.
Well, it is definitely an interesting question. If you only engage with the things that you're interested in, you would never go outside of your environment.
You become a very narrow person.
You become a very narrow person. So there definitely ways how you can prospect a certain way, right? Like, this is the good thing about programmatic. You target, but we have no other choice as well into going into a very traditional technique, which is called A/B testing, which we used to do decades ago.
My word, many years ago.
Many years ago. With this is what I mentioned. Like we are with the evolution of technology, we thought everything is solved through automation, which is not true, because everything is, technology is only as good as people that use it, right? How experienced they are, yes, AI, or let's say machine learning, right? That's where we are from my position. Will only get you to a certain position, but you need human beings who plan an A/B testing, who pitch that to the brand that is relevant. No, we would pitch a programmatic away. It's like, well, you have thousands of line items, and then you would optimize it, like in search. But there are many ways, many other steps beyond media that are relevant. The creative, the planning, where where we on the one hand are still in complete outdated processes that we need to automate to stay relevant, because it's a cost factor nobody needs, and no agency can afford that anymore, right? In terms of how do we go to the next evolution step? You can't do everything manual and then when it comes to the buying, do everything automated. It just doesn't work like that. It needs to be an ecosystem that helps you on the way plan right based on campaign data, first party data, publisher first party data, and then feeds you back, make recommendations what to do best. And then as a human being, you need to do that choice. You have that choice to do it.
Then you have to make a choice. Exactly.
And
we must never take away choice from the individual.
We need to remind ourselves why we are in this business, right? Advertising is about, showing an ad to a person that is not aware that he needs that product, right? And when that person sees that product, he needs to feel that experience and that engagement with that product, feeling that he deserves to own it. We forgot that, that creativity plays a big part of it, and we need to, plug that creativity into execution to be able to target. Now we have these challenges, coming.
So I was speaking to someone only last week who's a Facebook advertising expert working for a very big brand, and I was asking her about what makes a difference. So how do you improve the ROI of the Facebook ad? And she was saying, Mike, it's really simple. The creative is the biggest determinant of value. The quality of the creative, the way it engages with the person on the receiving end as a human being, the language that you use, the images, that creative. Yes, targeting is critical, clearly. But the targeting should be like a bit of a hygiene factor. If you know who you're targeting, you ought to be able to get that right. What makes the difference is the creativity, and that's human led.
It's I once said in an interview in Oslo, and it just slipped out by a big Norwegian publisher. It's like nobody clicks on crap, right? So it is
exactly right.
It's a given, and but now we have the challenge that we have banner blindness and young people that we don't take serious enough what we have to, because they're the consumers of tomorrow, just hate ads. And they just, they look for anything that will prevent them from getting targeted. So either way, and I welcome the solution by Google if they understand it, but they download ad blockers and, try to block ads wherever they can and not being engaged with any of, I'd say garbage is a strong word, but, with ads they don't want to be involved with.
So on that point, right. Hossein, so where's it going in the next 3 years? So where's Programmatic going to take us as consumers and as brands in the next 3 years that's going to genuinely add value to people's lives?
So there depends on what's going to happen in the next 12 months. So we need to we have this evolution next step with the cookie that is leaving our lives. So it will be a different experience at the beginning. Programmatic, as I said, will be very helpful still to help agencies who will play a bigger part since everything gets fragmented at some point. If you cannot do cross-channel attribution anymore as you used to, it gets a bit more fragmented, although these teams are all together now. But strategy and planning gets more important in terms of storytelling as well as creativity. Yes. So if we focus a bit more on digital transformation, as we all do all the time, right? Processes, infrastructure, people, and storytelling, right? Like I saw a nice term, storyization. That's what young people want, right? They want to experience, they want to be part of a story.
Yes.
Otherwise, they make their opinion about a brand in seconds, right? And they have no problem sharing that opinion with their network, which is would scare me as a brand, right? You have one ad you think is great, one guy says it's terrible, shares this with
Yep.
a million people, and then you failed basically. So it's a sensitive game, but we have to be very diverse. We have to we cannot we have to understand that one size does not fit all. Although the flock solution gives you that intention, putting people in smart groups. Okay, so you put me in this box. What if I have different interests and stuff like that? That will be probably dynamic as well. But the creativity part, I was like, we need to think about different versions. Like,
Yeah.
If your brand, your core colors are red, blue, and yellow, maybe people like different colors. It's what so you have the technology to show you a different version of colors. Do it, right? Because you want to do that sale. You want to have that conversion. So brands need to be that flexible as well. And look at McDonald's, look at Nike, look at all of them. McDonald's went green one day when they figured out, red is quite aggressive. That's why some people just don't like our brand. And convert that to an activation piece that is programmatically or programmable, because programmatic is just the media activation part, and programmable should be the process till you get there. But in the next 3 years, we have now a good amount of the rise of CTV coming up with a good portion of spendings on that, where we can target in the smart TV environment with relevant ads, which is great. And in-game advertising is on the rise, which is to think about the average gamer spends 2 to 2.5 hours every day. What you can do in a game in terms of advertising, and there are companies that do that programmatically. Voice is on the rise as well. It's like, how do you communicate with voice ads through Alexa or Google or other devices? Chat advertising, they call it, right? How do you communicate and chat? Yes, chat advertising.
Not heard of that. Okay.
So with chatbots, you don't need to necessarily target. The context of the conversation really delivers the message of the ad, which can be delivered programmatically as well. So all of that, as long as it's not too much, I think we need to reduce the over messaging to really relevant messaging and be more strategic and insight driven.
Yes.
Because we used to, or we still rush too fast to that. Okay, this are your audience. Target. And probably many of your audiences went to Booking.com once and they looked for a trip, and then they got retargeted probably 20, 30, 40 times, which can be quite annoying. It's like, oh man, I just bought this. I already bought this, so why do I get retargeted? But technology can be applied good, and technology can be applied bad. And then it's experience. What the industry has done in the beginning, we refocus on young people to learn this trading kind of doing business, and we forgot about the people who are actually experienced.
Exactly.
Now we need to refocus and bring those people in who have the experience, bring those people in who lead and teach these young kids how to execute that campaigns, and even teach them to speak out. They have some crazy ideas. We've not done this very well, to be honest, right? If you have a certain speed of growth, the one thing you forget, because it takes the longest, is education, right? And culture, unfortunately. Because everything, and that's based on, again, what I said in the beginning, that's based on an outdated model called maximizing shareholder value, because it's speed. And if you think logically, very logically today. So why do we still work 5 days a week? We consolidate everything.
Yeah.
Everything should be a 2-day week and 5 days weekend.
The Tim Ferriss 4-hour week, whatever it was called. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that's what technology is for. But based on seeing the opportunity to consolidate more tasks in one person, see where that led us. Again, burnouts. There's never been so many burnouts ever before,
Exactly.
like in the times we are now. And consolidating is only good if you increase the quality, right?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately often not the case. You see this extremely now because nobody really cared about digital transformation. I have many stories where I try to implement that. Just look at the health market, still at 7, 8, 9%, and that's one of the most important sectors we are looking at right now. And they all need to digital transform. Now everybody hurries to transform, but fast is never good, right? You need to, you need to. Every evolution needs to have, as I said, an A/B testing budget where it says, okay, we will make mistakes to get to an optimal result. Because there's no perfect. But
so on
to
your
get to
site,
optimal,
Hossein,
yeah.
so that on one of my questions actually that leads into that quite nicely. You've got something about you've got an insight into the divergence between the rate of change or adoption of martech versus the rate of organisational change within companies. So what was that about? Where did that insight kind of come from?
Well, it's based on experience and based what I've seen. When you work in digital transformation, and when you see companies that work on certain principles, we're all revenue driven and we all want to try to make more money. But we've seen it in the media quite often. When a big company is not doing well, what do? They let people go. Or if you lose a huge client, what do? You let people go. I have the opinion, like when you lose, right, you need to invest in people and to show strength at some point. The same with last year. A few companies really succeeded in showing strength and give security, which empowered people to work harder, be more motivated,
be more creative,
show positiveness, be more creative. But if you always have this fear that tomorrow you could be gone, it's probably only relates to the US and maybe to the UK because it's the work model where you can, it's very well done, created for companies. When you look at Germany or France, employees are very secure. You cannot treat them like that. But I've seen that, for example, a hierarchical model where I'm not against that, right? I was a manager many times, but then it really depends on how you lead your teams. Do you manage your teams? Do you lead your teams? Do you ask them to do things? Do you show them to do things? Right? Do you acknowledge their work to your boss? Do you give them opportunities? I had this example this morning where I was in the middle of a pitch at IPG, and Google asked me to come and do be in a panel with mobile providers, the CMO of Vodafone and a few others, and I couldn't come. So I sent my mobile specialist, and I said he's not senior enough. I said he's not senior enough, but he knows this topic better than I do, right? He reports to me.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean he's not senior? So I said you only get him, right? And he was quite nervous. He said, the one thing, the knowledge you have, the confidence I will teach you, right? And I did, and he went on stage and he killed everybody because he was the only one who was able to answer the specific questions of the audience, right?
Exactly.
And that's one fact.
But that's such a critical point. The confidence, the role of the leader is to. I've been reminded recently working with sales teams about. I help them improve their negotiation skills.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that I'm finding across all sales teams is if I can help them feel more confident when they negotiate, they will get much better outcomes. Yes,
Yeah.
there's tools, there's techniques, there's frameworks, but actually that confidence piece is critically important in
It is.
terms of performance.
It is. It is. Is something you cannot really measure, right? So confidence
Exactly.
doesn't mean you need to sound smart. The way you walk in, the way you express yourself, and
We used to call it
sometimes
gravitas. In KPMG, it was called gravitas.
sometimes less is more, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
When I worked for Google, I was invited to Dublin, and I gave a presentation to 600 Googlers about the future of rich media. And then one guy came to me and said, "Hussein, you are so visible. How do you do that with all these strong Googlers competing every day against each other?" And I said, and he told me they have meetings every week and everybody's reinventing the tire. And I said, well, why don't you say only something when it's relevant and is impactful? Then you have, then you're bigger, your spotlight is bigger than saying every week something that is probably not relevant, right? And then it comes again to this old model of, visibility, to show, okay, you engage, you talk. So, leaders need to be smarter how to value their own people, then they need to be part of the work process and not above it. It's a very easy process. Like, you need to be able to make your hands dirty, right? If you're capable of doing that, your team and your company, if your manager is good, sees values that, and your reputation will go beyond that, because you're not only a talker, you're a doer, right? And
so if I go back to my, on this point, if I go back to my days at KPMG, many years ago, 1996 to 2000, I was there, so over 20 years ago now. It was and I look back at it now, and I talk to people about the model because that model was what you said. The partner's job was to mentor the managers and directors to become partners. And they did that by critiquing and challenging constructively your work, because they had amazing insights, and their ability to communicate in a structured, logical way, things that other people hadn't seen, was what you were learning from. They were doers, but they were leaders. It was quite a clever combination.
It's when a year before I left Tavares Group, I with a good friend from France who was a colleague, good friend, very good friend today. We built a university. We pitched a university. We got this idea of a university, and we said, well, yeah, let's do this. And the organization, the executive management asked us just show our business models, like the trading desk or performance products. I was like, no. So you want, because when I came to this company, everybody used programmatic in every sentence, just the way to confuse their clients, or they didn't understand that, and it really scared me. And I said, the only way you can transform your employees to consultants is if they understand the core fundamentals of this business. And they said, what is that? How does a cookie work? What is a cookie? How does a server work? What is an ad server? What is RTB? How does a demand side platform work? What's the process, the supply chain process between A and B, between a brand and the publisher? What's the relationship? And it became a huge program, quite successful. We trained 20,000 people, and then it went above Vivendi, above Havas Group to the mothership Vivendi, and probably today must have trained over 60,000 people. So, right. So, and we built then, from a diversity perspective, we gave every country so we built a platform with a great team, priority. A platform we programmed ourselves. We gave every country the ability to build their own programs. So before I left, we had over 400 programs globally, right? Where you could build your own training on certain topics, and it was received very, very well. I believe the only way to maximize knowledge is to share it.
Absolutely.
As I said to you, because you only have a perspective and perception of what you know based on your experience and the things you learn. But maybe, this young kid was your internshipper, has an idea that is crazy, and in my time, people would say that's stupid, that's impossible, and today we have to take this serious, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure when Elon Musk said it's like, oh, I'm going to build an electric car, people said that's a stupid idea, and he did
Exactly.
it, right?
And
Or
he
I'm
did
going to
it.
make space travel affordable. That's a stupid idea. Why would you do this? For the government is doing this already. It's like, and he did it, right? So
Yeah.
if it's crazy, right? No idea today can be stupid, right? It's just it needs to be. People need to have the confidence to place it and not to feel embarrassed
Yeah.
if it's obviously not
And that's a
idea. And
cultural thing.
it's a
Definitely.
cultural thing,
Now,
right? And you need to teach people that to be respected, right? Because you never know. Maybe that person you laughed at
one
goes out,
day
there's a new
you
company,
will
and
work
buys
for
your
them.
company. Yes, exactly.
You'll work for them.
Yes.
So,
And
bringing this to this has been fascinating. I mean, truly fascinating and interesting and insightful. So, one last thing, well, two
yes,
last things really. One, in summary, what should full service marketing agencies be doing around this kind of programmatic landscape? In 30
um,
seconds.
and 30 seconds. All right, brands should definitely invest in people, look at their first party data, make sure they consolidate their teams, from marketing mix modeling to analytics and digital marketing. They need to work closer together. They need to understand that they need to get rid of those silos. Agencies need to bring in lean processes, need to reinvent the job of the media planner. They need to automate certain processes, give more power to the planner and the strategist to work on storytelling, bring in creativity more, which means they need to have a better relationship to the creative side,
Yeah,
working on insights from personas for the creatives to audience targeting, um, and the core of everything is just easy: culture and people. Treat your people well. Um, don't promise them things you can't keep. Just give them an outlook. The kids of today just function different. They're not like you and me hoping that tomorrow is a
that's
better
right.
day. They just
Yeah,
leave, right? And the worst thing that can happen to you if you're a bad example and they think that what you do is right, they will be a bad example, and the
yeah,
chain won't end. And it's to be a leader or a manager or a CEO, whatever you are that has a team, is a huge responsibility. Anything you say, anything you do has an impact and will be replicated if people perceive this as normal. And you should do your best to train those people to do their best to train other
exactly.
people the best way.
Hussein, it's been an enormous pleasure having you. Really, really enjoyed it. I've learned so. I'm a lifelong learner. I've learned so much. It's been really fantastic. Where can people find out more about you?
They can connect on LinkedIn, or they go on my website. The easiest way is on LinkedIn, I guess, to connect. But I have a website as well, or through other social channels. When everything gets back to normality, I regularly speak on stages about the way we should do marketing and the way we should treat people. Um, and reach out anytime. I'm here. I'm always good to have for a good conversation.
Fantastic. Hussein, thank you. A real, real pleasure.